Imagine a world where the American colonies never won their independence from Britain. Instead of becoming the United States of America, the 13 colonies remained under British rule. What if the Revolutionary War had ended in defeat for the colonists? How would that have changed the course of history? Not just for America, but for the entire world. In this video, we explore an alternate timeline where the United States lost its fight for freedom, and what that could mean for democracy, global power, culture, and the modern world as we know it. The Revolutionary War lost. How and why? In reality, the Revolutionary War ended in 1783 with the Treaty of Paris recognizing the independence of the American colonies. But what if things had gone differently? Imagine British forces had maintained tighter control over the colonies from the beginning, with reinforcements arriving in greater numbers and better strategies to counter the guerrilla tactics of the colonists. The Royal Navy keeps its dominance of the seas, cutting off foreign aid and supplies to the revolutionaries. Loyalist support in the colonies is stronger, providing intelligence and manpower that the rebels could never overcome. Key battles that were turning points, like the siege of Yorktown, never conclude in favour of the Americans. Instead, the British crush the rebellion with overwhelming military power, aided by loyalists and better supply lines. The Continental Army is worn down, suffering continuous defeats and desertions. The revolutionary leaders, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, either flee to Europe, face capture, or fade into obscurity, their dreams of liberty extinguished before they could ignite a lasting flame. The colonies remain British territories governed directly by the Crown, with a reinforced military presence to prevent future uprisings. New laws impose tighter restrictions on colonial assemblies and enforce loyalty. The hope for a new nation based on liberty and self-rule is crushed before it can take root. In this scenario, British commanders learn the harsh lessons from the initial phases of rebellion. They enact policies combining military suppression with economic incentives to placate moderate colonists, while ruthlessly dealing with hardline revolutionaries. The British Parliament passes legislation to improve infrastructure and trade in the colonies, hoping to integrate the American economy more closely with the empire and prevent discontent. The political landscape. Under continued British rule, without independence, the 13 colonies remain British provinces managed by royal governors and appointed officials. The idea of self-governance under a constitution is indefinitely delayed. Instead of the United States Constitution of 1787, the colonies continue under British common law and parliamentary oversight. Colonial assemblies become mere advisory councils with limited power, unable to pass laws that conflict with royal interests. The ideals of republicanism, democracy, and the rights of citizens remain stifled. British parliamentary laws and taxes continue to be imposed without any meaningful representation for the colonists. The slogan, "No taxation without representation," loses its urgency as the rebellion is crushed and protest is silenced. However, this does not mean political stagnation. Some colonies gradually push for reforms within the British system. Political activists seek greater local autonomy and some form of representative governance, but these efforts face constant opposition from London. British authorities fear that any concession might reignite revolutionary sentiment. Slavery remains a complex and contentious issue. Without the push for independence, abolitionist movements in the colonies develop more slowly. The British Empire's own approach to slavery is evolving. While Britain abolishes the slave trade in 1807 and slavery itself in its territories by the 1830s, the timing and extent of abolition in the American colonies depend on London's political calculations and the local economy's reliance on slave labour. Meanwhile, dissatisfied colonists who had hoped for freedom either emigrate to other parts of the world or continue secret resistance. Underground networks spread revolutionary ideas discreetly, smuggling banned books and pamphlets. However, British surveillance and crackdowns keep these movements marginal. The strengthened British Empire and its global reach. If the American colonies remain part of the British Empire, London's global power grows significantly. The colonies continue to provide vital resources, fertile farmland, timber, tobacco, and later cotton, that fuel Britain's expanding industrial base. The American economy is tightly linked to British markets, with trade regulated by mercantilist policies designed to benefit the empire. Britain's economic might swells, helping finance the Industrial Revolution and naval dominance. The wealth generated by the colonies supports Britain's ability to wage wars, and maintain its vast colonial holdings worldwide. Without the loss of the American colonies, British prestige on the world stage remains unchallenged for decades. However, the suppression of the American Revolution delays political reforms in Britain itself. The success of the revolution in our timeline helped inspire liberal movements in Britain, pushing for parliamentary reforms and expanded suffrage. Without this external example, the rise of British democracy slows down, with aristocratic and monarchical power remaining entrenched longer. The absence of a successful American Revolution also discourages independence movements in other parts of the British Empire, such as the Caribbean, Africa, and Asia. Colonies in India, Canada, and Australia remain loyal for longer, but simmering tensions grow beneath the surface. The ripple effect on global revolutions and the spread of democracy. The American Revolution was a beacon for many other liberation struggles. Without it, the ripple effects across the world look very different. The French Revolution, which was inspired by American Republican ideals and the Declaration of Independence, might either be delayed or take a less radical path. French society remains rigid, with monarchy and aristocracy maintaining power longer. The Enlightenment's political philosophies lose a practical example to rally behind, weakening the revolutionary cause. In Latin America, countries like Venezuela, Argentina, and Mexico remain under Spanish colonial rule for a longer period. Without the success of American independence, revolutionary leaders like Simón Bolívar have less inspiration and possibly less foreign support, delaying or preventing the independence of many nations. Globally, the spread of democracy, constitutionalism, and human rights slows down. Monarchies and empires maintain dominance well into the 19th and possibly the 20th centuries. The ideals of liberty and equality remain theoretical, confined to small circles of intellectuals without mass political power. Cultural and social consequences in the colonies. Culturally, the American colonies never developed the distinct identity that emerged after independence. English culture and norms dominate heavily, with colonial societies maintaining British legal systems, traditions, and Anglican religious institutions. The concept of the
What if the United States had lost the Revolutionary War? The world would be less democratic, less free, and dominated longer by empires. The ideals of liberty, equality, and democracy might have taken much longer to spread. Yet history is unpredictable. Underground resistance, future rebellions, and new ideas could eventually challenge imperial rule. The spirit of freedom, once ignited, is difficult to extinguish forever. This alternate history reminds us how fragile freedom is, and how the outcome of one war can reshape the entire world. Thank you for watching The Real History. If you enjoyed this alternate history exploration, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. What other what-if questions should we explore next? Let us know. See you in the next video.